I used to believe the safest place in the world was my own home. That belief ended at 6:42 on a Tuesday morning. The sound wasn't a knock. It was a violent pounding that rattled the oak front door of my villa. Before I even opened my eyes, my German Shepherd, Max, was barking like he'd never barked before. I reached for my phone. 6 missed calls. 3 text messages. 1 voicemail from my next-door neighbor. "Daniel, don't come outside until you look through the window." A chill ran through me. Still half asleep, I pulled back the curtain overlooking my circular driveway. My heart stopped. 3 police cruisers. A black SUV marked Silver Ridge Estates, HOA. Nearly 20 neighbors standing on the sidewalk in pajamas, whispering while recording with their phones. And standing perfectly still beside the officers, Victoria Langford, the president of the HOA. She wasn't nervous. She wasn't confused. She looked satisfied, like someone watching the final move of a chess match she'd spent months planning. The pounding came again. "Mr. Carter? Police department. Please open the door." I took one deep breath before opening it. 2 uniformed officers greeted me politely. The older one introduced himself. "Morning, sir. I'm Officer Benjamin Harris." "What happened?" "We received a report concerning possible illegal activity occurring inside this residence." For a second, I honestly thought he had the wrong address. There has to be some mistake. I hope there is. Before I could say another word, Victoria stepped forward. "I told the board this would eventually happen." I looked directly at her. "You called the police?" She folded her arms. "I reported suspicious activity. As HOA president, that's my responsibility." I almost laughed. Suspicious activity? Officer Harris raised a hand before the argument could begin. "Mr. Carter, nobody is accusing you of anything at this point. We'd simply like to ask a few questions." I nodded. "Go ahead." He asked where I'd been the previous evening. I explained I'd returned from a construction project outside Tucson around 8:30, ate dinner alone, answered emails until midnight, and went to bed. Simple. Ordinary. Boring. Exactly the truth. The officer listened carefully. Victoria didn't. She interrupted. "Tell them about the vehicles." Officer Harris frowned. "What vehicles?" "The expensive SUVs that visit his property." I couldn't help smiling. "My clients." She ignored me. "They're constantly coming and going." I looked at Officer Harris. "I own Carter Custom Homes. People hire me to build million-dollar houses. Most of my clients drive expensive vehicles." The younger officer actually nodded. "That makes sense." Victoria's smile faded. "Good." Officer Harris thanked me for my time. "Based on what we've seen, there's no reason to continue this conversation. Sorry for disturbing your morning." As the officers walked back toward their cruisers, Victoria called after them. "You're just leaving?" The officer turned. "Unless you have actual evidence of criminal activity, yes." She clenched her jaw. The police drove away, but the damage had already been done. Every neighbor had watched officers walk up to my front door. Rumors spread faster than facts. Victoria knew that. That was the whole point. By 9 o'clock, my phone wouldn't stop buzzing. Some friends wanted to know if I was okay. Others awkwardly asked whether the police had really searched my house. One local contractor canceled a meeting until things settled down. Perfect. Exactly what Victoria wanted. I made coffee, sat on the back terrace overlooking the valley, and tried convincing myself this was over. It wasn't. At precisely 10:15 a.m., another vehicle pulled into my driveway. This time, it was an HOA inspection truck. 3 board members climbed out carrying clipboards. Victoria stepped out last. She wore a white blazer, sunglasses, and an expression that screamed confidence. I walked outside before they reached the front steps. "What now?" She smiled. "We're conducting an emergency property inspection. Based on the police report." The same report that went nowhere. She ignored the question. "As part of the inspection, we'll need temporary access to the interior." "No." She blinked. "I'm sorry. No. The board has authority. The board has authority over landscaping, community standards, and common areas." I took one step closer. "It does not have authority to enter my home." One of the board members quietly looked at Victoria. She didn't back down. "Then simply provide the HOA with a permanent emergency key." I stared at her. For a moment, I wondered if she'd actually rehearsed this conversation. You want a key? It's standard practice. No, it isn't. It will be. You planning on rewriting state law this afternoon? Her smile disappeared. Daniel, cooperation benefits everyone. I don't care. This community deserves transparency. This community deserves leaders who understand private property. The silence that followed felt heavier than the Arizona heat. Finally, she spoke. You've become very difficult, and you've become very interested in getting inside my house. Something flashed across her face. Only for a second. Surprise. Then it vanished. You have until Friday to comply. I have until never. She turned sharply. We'll remember that. I hope you do. The inspection team left without another word. That afternoon, I drove across town to meet my attorney, Rachel Kim. Rachel had represented my construction company for years. She listened carefully while I explained everything. When I finished, she leaned back in her chair. This isn't about inspections. I know. This isn't about emergency access either. I know. She folded her hands. So why does the HOA president want unrestricted access to your house? That question had been haunting me for weeks. My villa wasn't just one of the nicest homes in Silver Ridge Estates. It was built on the highest point in the neighborhood. Panoramic mountain views. Infinity pool. Private wine cellar. A ballroom-sized living room with floor-to-ceiling windows. Perfect for large private events. Rachel noticed the expression on my face. What? I think she wants my house. Rachel laughed. She can't take your house. No. I looked out her office window. But she can make living there miserable enough that I decide to sell. The room fell silent. Because suddenly, the theory made perfect sense. 2 nights later, I found out I wasn't imagining things. At 1:17 a.m., my security system sent an alert. Motion detected. Front gate. I opened the camera feed. A black SUV had stopped outside my property. The driver's door opened. Someone stepped out wearing dark clothes. The person walked confidently toward my electronic gate, then looked directly into the camera. Even in the darkness, I recognized her instantly. Victoria Langford. She wasn't alone. She removed something from her pocket. A small electronic device. She plugged it into the keypad beside my gate. The display flickered. She entered one code. Access denied. Another code. Access denied. Then another. And another. She wasn't inspecting. She wasn't checking security. She was trying to get inside. I watched from my bedroom, my pulse pounding. Then headlights appeared at the far end of the street. Victoria quickly disconnected the device, hurried back to the SUV, and disappeared into the darkness. I replayed the footage 5 times. Every frame made one thing crystal clear. The woman demanding the key to my house had just been caught trying to break into it herself. I barely slept after watching Victoria try to break into my property. By sunrise, I had replayed the security footage more than 20 times. Every frame confirmed what I'd seen. She hadn't come to inspect anything. She came prepared with an electronic keypad programmer on several access codes. This wasn't an HOA dispute anymore. Someone was actively trying to get inside my home, and I needed to know why. The next morning, I called Marcus Reed, a former homicide detective who had retired from the Phoenix Police Department after nearly 25 years of service. We had become friends when I hired his security company to protect one of my construction sites. Marcus arrived just after 9. He watched the footage in complete silence. Victoria stepped out of the black SUV. She connected the device. She entered code after code. She looked over her shoulder twice before leaving. Marcus paused the video. She's not guessing. What do you mean? Look at the way she's entering the numbers. He rewound the clip. She's reading from memory. He pointed toward the screen. People who guess hesitate. She doesn't. She already believes one of those codes should work. That made my stomach tighten. So, someone gave her access codes? Or promised her one? Marcus leaned back. Daniel, this isn't about curiosity. What is it about? He looked around my living room. The imported marble floors. The vaulted ceilings. The wall of glass overlooking the mountains. The infinity pool shimmering beyond the terrace. If I had to guess, he looked directly at me. She wants this house. At first, it sounded ridiculous. No HOA president could simply take someone's home. But Marcus wasn't suggesting that. He believed Victoria wanted to force me out. Pressure, fines, false complaints, public humiliation. If she could destroy my reputation, damage my business, and make life unbearable, eventually I might sell. And if I sold, she already knew exactly who wanted to buy it. That thought stayed with me all day. 3 days later, I found the first real clue. I was leaving my office downtown when my assistant hurried toward me. "Daniel, someone has been asking about your property." "Who?" "A real estate broker. I never listed my house." "I know." She handed me a business card. The broker specialized in luxury estates. I called immediately. The woman sounded surprised. "Mr. Carter? Someone contacted you about my villa." There was a brief silence. "I'm sorry. I thought you already knew." "Knew what?" "A representative claiming to work with your HOA asked us to prepare a market valuation." I froze. They said the owner was considering selling. I never authorized that. "Oh." The broker's voice became cautious. They also mentioned there was already a buyer. My grip tightened around the phone. "Did they give a name?" "I'm afraid I can't disclose client information." But yes, there definitely appeared to be someone waiting. That evening, Rachel called. "I've got something." "What is it?" "The emergency key policy." "You found it." "I found what they submitted." "And there isn't one." I frowned. "What do you mean?" "There was never a board vote. No official amendment. No homeowner notification. No legal review." Hakil sighed. Victoria invented the entire policy. I leaned back in my chair. So she lied. Worse. Rachel's voice hardened. She used HOA letterhead to make it appear official. Forgery. Things had just become much more serious. Friday afternoon brought another surprise. I received a certified envelope from the HOA. Inside was a notice imposing nearly $18,500 in fines. Reasons included failure to comply with emergency access requirements, obstruction of HOA inspections, unsafe property conditions, commercial misuse of residential property, unauthorized structural modifications. I laughed. Every accusation was false. Rachel laughed too. They're getting desperate. Can they actually collect this? Not without proving it. But they'll certainly try. The following Sunday, Silver Ridge Estates held its monthly community gathering at the clubhouse. Normally, I avoided HOA events. This time, I went. The clubhouse overlooked a small, artificial lake surrounded by palm trees and expensive landscaping. Nearly every homeowner had shown up. Victoria stood near the entrance, greeting residents as though nothing had happened. Designer dress, perfect smile, perfect hair, the image of confidence. Until she saw me. Her smile faded ever so slightly. I walked directly toward her. "Evening. Daniel." She smiled again. "I wasn't expecting you. I figured I'd stop by." "I'm glad." Her eyes narrowed. "Have you reconsidered our request?" "No. The board is prepared to move forward." "So, am I." She tilted her head. "I don't think you understand how difficult this could become." "I don't think you understand something either." "And what's that?" I leaned closer. "I know you tried getting into my property." "For the first time?" Victoria looked genuinely startled. Only for a second. Then she recovered. "I have no idea what you're talking about." "You were at my gate Tuesday night." "I was home. I have you on camera." Her smile disappeared completely. People nearby began looking toward us. She lowered her voice. "Careful, Daniel." "Why?" "Because making false accusations can have consequences." I couldn't help smiling. So can getting caught. Without another word, I walked away. But before leaving the clubhouse, I noticed something that made every alarm bell in my head ring. Victoria wasn't watching me anymore. She was watching my phone. Specifically, the pocket where I just slipped it after mentioning security footage. She looked nervous. Not angry. Nervous. As if she suddenly realized evidence existed. Around midnight, my phone buzzed. Unknown number. I almost ignored it. Instead, I answered. A man's voice whispered, "You don't know me." "Who is this?" "I work for the HOA." My heartbeat quickened. "What do you want?" "I know why Victoria wants your villa." Silence. "Meet me tomorrow." "Where?" "The old marina parking lot." 7 o'clock. The line disconnected. No name. No explanation. Nothing. Marcus insisted on coming with me. The marina sat nearly empty after sunset. Fishing boats, rocked gently against the docks. At exactly 7, a silver pickup pulled into the parking lot. An older man stepped out carrying a thick manila folder. "I'm Alan Brooks, the former HOA facilities manager." He looked exhausted, like someone who hadn't slept in days. "I only have a few minutes." He handed me the folder. Inside were invoices, private event schedules, luxury catering receipts, alcohol deliveries, high-end furniture rentals. Every event listed the same location. Not the clubhouse. My villa's address. I looked at Alan. "My house." He nodded. Victoria promised wealthy investors she'd host exclusive parties there. She told them she'd secured the property. I stared at him. But she never had permission. Exactly. Alan swallowed. When you refused to hand over the key. She couldn't keep those promises. So she decided to remove the problem. Me. He nodded. She believes if enough pressure is put on you, you'll sell. And the buyer she's already lined up will immediately let her use the property. Marcus slowly closed the folder. "This isn't an HOA dispute." Alan looked both of us in the eyes. "No, it's fraud. And it gets worse." He reached into his jacket. "There are financial records, too." "What kind?" Alan hesitated. "HOA money has been paying for those private investor parties." I felt the air leave my lungs. Millions of dollars in property value. HOA funds. False violations. Fake police reports. A forged policy. An attempted break-in. It all fit together. Victoria hadn't been obsessed with enforcing rules. She'd been protecting a much bigger scheme. Alan looked over his shoulder toward the dark parking lot. "I have to go. Will you testify?" He hesitated, then nodded. "If it comes to court, I'll tell the truth." He climbed back into his truck and drove away. Marcus looked down at the folder, then back at me. "Daniel." I nodded. "I know. This isn't about saving my house anymore." Marcus closed the folder with a heavy sigh. "No, it's about exposing an entire criminal operation." Just then, headlights appeared behind us. A black SUV rolled slowly into the parking lot. The same one from my security footage. The driver's window lowered. Victoria stared at us from behind the wheel. She smiled, then drove away without saying a single word. She knew we'd met someone. She just didn't know. He had already given us everything we needed. The moment Victoria's black SUV disappeared into the night, Marcus turned to me with an expression I'd only seen a handful of times. "She's scared." I looked back toward the empty road. She didn't look scared. Marcus shook his head. "She came here herself." So, if she thought she still controlled the situation, she'd send lawyers or another fake violation notice. Instead, she drove here to see who you were meeting. He paused. "That means she's worried someone talked." I looked down at the folder Alan Brooks had handed me. Inside were copies of invoices, email printouts, event schedules, payment approvals, and HOA expense reports. The paperwork painted a picture that was far uglier than I had imagined. Victoria hadn't just abused her authority. She had been running a private business through the HOA for years. Luxury investor dinners, exclusive networking parties, political fundraisers, all paid for, at least in part, with HOA money. And every time the clubhouse wasn't impressive enough, she promised clients something better. My villa. The only problem? She had never owned it. And I had never agreed. The next morning, Rachel spread every document across the conference table in her office. She worked silently for nearly 20 minutes, comparing dates, signatures, and bank records. Finally, she looked up. "Daniel, what? If these documents are authentic?" "They are. Then this isn't just civil misconduct." She tapped one invoice. "This payment came from the HOA Reserve Fund." Another. "This one was disguised as landscaping expenses." Another. "And this one was approved using forged board signatures." Marcus folded his arms. "That's criminal." Rachel nodded. "Fraud. Forgery. Misuse of association funds. Possibly conspiracy." She leaned back. "But we still need one thing." I already knew. Proof that Victoria personally directed it. Rachel smiled. "I think she's about to give us that herself." 3 days later, every homeowner in Silver Ridge Estates received an email. Special HOA board meeting, mandatory attendance. Victoria wanted the entire neighborhood present. Rachel believed she was trying to regain control before rumors spread. Marcus believed something else. Cornered people make mistakes. The clubhouse had never been so crowded. More than 100 residents packed into the meeting hall. Some stood against the walls. Others spilled into the hallway. Everyone had heard about the police visit, the fines, the rumors. Nobody knew the full truth. Yet, Victoria walked confidently onto the stage. She adjusted the microphone. "Good evening, everyone." Her voice remained calm. "As many of you know, false accusations have recently been made against this board." She glanced directly at me. "Our responsibility has always been protecting this community." A few people applauded. Most didn't. She continued. "Unfortunately, one homeowner has refused to cooperate with reasonable HOA policies." She paused dramatically. "And because of that refusal, our community has become the target of unnecessary legal disputes." Rachel leaned toward me. "She's setting herself up." I nodded. Victoria looked across the room. "Mr. Carter, would you care to explain why you've refused to provide emergency access to your property?" The room became silent. Every eye turned toward me. I slowly stood. "I'd be happy to." I walked toward the front, carrying a small black briefcase. Victoria watched every step. Her confidence never changed. She believed she still controlled the room. She was wrong. I placed the briefcase on the table, opened it, removed a laptop, connected it to the projector. The giant screen behind Victoria flickered to life. The first image appeared. A timestamp. 1:17 a.m. Security footage. Victoria standing outside my gate. The room instantly erupted with whispers. The video played. Everyone watched her remove the electronic programming device. Everyone watched her enter access codes. Again, and again, and again. The gate rejected every attempt. Victoria's face turned pale. She grabbed the microphone. "This footage is misleading. It isn't complete." I pressed another key. A second camera angle appeared. This one showed her vehicle. Its license plate. Its driver. Everything. Someone in the audience gasped. Harold Bennett, one of the oldest residents in the neighborhood, stood up. "Victoria, were you trying to break into his house?" She didn't answer. Instead, she pointed at me. "This is harassment." "No," I replied calmly. "It's evidence." Rachel stepped forward. "If everyone would please remain seated." She held up another folder. "These are certified financial records." Residents exchanged confused looks. Rachel continued. "For the past 18 months, HOA funds have been used to pay for private investor events." Someone shouted from the back. "What investor events?" Marcus placed enlarged invoices onto an easel. "Luxury catering, wine services, entertainment, transportation, private security." Every invoice carried the same destination. Daniel Carter's home. The audience looked stunned. Victoria looked terrified. She grabbed the paperwork. "These are fake." Rachel smiled. "No, they came directly from the HOA accounting system." The room exploded with angry voices. Then the clubhouse doors opened. Everyone turned. Alan Brooks walked inside. He wasn't alone. Two former HOA employees followed him. Victoria actually took a step backward. Alan approached the microphone. "My name is Alan Brooks. I worked for this HOA for 6 years." He looked directly at the homeowners. "Everything you've just seen is true." Silence. Alan continued. Victoria repeatedly instructed staff to prepare Daniel Carter's property for private events. But he never agreed. So she ordered us to create excuses to gain access. Residents stared in disbelief. We were told to invent inspection notices, create emergency policies, issue fake violations. And when none of that worked, Alan looked toward Victoria. She said, "If Daniel won't hand over the key, we'll make him wish he'd never bought that house." The clubhouse became completely silent. Victoria suddenly slammed her hand onto the table. "He's lying." Alan calmly removed his phone. "I recorded our meetings." He pressed play. Victoria's own voice echoed through the speakers. "I don't care what it takes. I promised investors that villa. Either he gives us the key, or we force him out." No one moved. No one spoke. The only sound in the room was Victoria's recorded voice repeating her own words. When the recording ended, Residents began shouting all at once. You lied to us. You stole our money. Resign. This is unbelievable. Harold Bennett stood again. I've lived here for 22 years. I trusted you. You used this neighborhood for your own business. He looked around the room. I move for an immediate vote to remove Victoria Langford as HOA president. The motion was seconded before he even finished speaking. The vote wasn't close. Every single board member voted yes. Even Greg Mercer. Victoria stared at them in disbelief. You can't do this. Greg slowly removed his board badge. It's already done. Just as Victoria reached for her purse, the front doors opened again. This time, it wasn't homeowners. It was detectives from the County Financial Crimes Unit. The lead detective approached calmly. Victoria Langford? She didn't answer. We have a warrant regarding allegations of fraud, forgery, filing false police reports, attempted unlawful entry, and misuse of association funds. The entire room froze. The detective continued. You'll have the opportunity to respond to these allegations. Victoria looked around desperately. Her attorney wasn't there. The board wasn't defending her. No one spoke. No one moved. The woman who had controlled the neighborhood through fear suddenly stood completely alone. She looked at me one last time. This is your fault. I met her eyes. No, it's the consequence of your own choices. The detective escorted her toward the exit. As she passed through the clubhouse doors, the crowd silently stepped aside. Not out of respect, out of disappointment. 6 months later, Silver Ridge Estates looked different. The new HOA board eliminated dozens of unnecessary fines, opened every financial record to residents, and introduced independent audits for the first time in the community's history. Trust slowly returned. So did the neighborhood. As for me, life finally became quiet again. One evening, I sat beside the infinity pool, watching the Arizona sunset paint the mountains in shades of gold and crimson. Max lay beside my chair, completely relaxed. For the first time in months. So was I. Sometimes people ask whether I ever considered selling my villa after everything that happened. The answer is always the same. No, because a home isn't valuable simply because it's large, or expensive, or overlooks the mountains. It's valuable because it's the one place in the world where you should never have to ask permission to feel safe. Victoria believed power gave her the right to cross that line. She was wrong. She wanted the key to my house. Instead, she unlocked the truth about herself. And in the end, the only door that closed was the one leading back to the life she thought she'd never lose.
Subscribe the channel and press the bell icon for new updates.